Welcome back, folks, to part 2 of my Festive Froggy card series. This time we are doing a shadow box card. So starting, right with what we're doing here, I got the shadow box card dies from Fawn. I am taking this bigger piece, the main piece, and as well as this little frame here, and I am taping the frame down, and I am cutting that on some of this turquoise cardstock. Here we go. There we go. So there's the frame piece, and I'm cutting out another one of these panels. I guess that's what they are. So I have one with the frame cut out, one without. And I have these two hills, once again from the shadow box card die set, and I'm cutting those out of some white cardstock, and I'm taking that frame piece again, and I'm cutting it. That will be a little note card for the back of this shadow box. So here's everything after I run it through my die cutting machine. Right, so I'm taking some assorted cardstocks. I got different shades of green, pink, and red, and I have some of these dies from the shadow box card mountain add-on and the Fireplace add-on. I got some cardinals, I got some bows, some candy canes, and some holly all cut out here. I am adding eyes to my cardinals with a black glaze pen and letting that dry. And here I am gluing down my hollies onto the leaves. I had cut out a whole bunch of these. I do have extras, but they're good for using on other things, but I feel like these elements were so gorgeous on this card and they really added something else. So I'm gluing those together with multi-matte medium, and I'm using a jewel picker to assemble them. Totally optional, but I think we got one of these in a card kit, and I've actually been really enjoying these. I took my candy canes, so I have a white backing, and then I have a front part, and I'm gluing those together. They are a little piddly, kind of a pain to glue together, but they do look really nice when it's all done and set, so I do recommend adding these if you have the patience for it. So next I am taking these hills I had cut out, and I am taking some chunky glitter from Fawn, and I'm going to be adding that to my hills. First I am kind of scoring these fold lines, or these tabs that are kind of embossed into these when they're die cut, and I'm adding some Fawn liquid glue to the tops of these, making sure I'm kind of getting a good even coat of the glue, and then I will be sprinkling on some glitter. I'm using a coffee filter to kind of catch the rest and funnel it back into the container so I don't waste a whole bunch of glitter. While my hills are drying on the side here, I am just scoring these lines on these panel pieces. That's what I'm going to call them. So I'm just folding in those tabs and folding at the crease on both of those pieces here, the one with the frame and the one without. Next, I am taking one of those panel pieces, it doesn't really matter which one, and I'm applying some Be Creative tape to one of these little tabs here. Next, I will be lining these up against each other. I tried using my grid mat to kind of help, but it's all by eye, really. And I'm just gluing down one of these tabs. You don't want to fold and completely glue the whole box together. We're going to save that for later. Next, I am taking this little square I had cut out from before. This is completely optional, you don't have to do this, but I just added it to the back to write a little message later. You can also just fit in scrap of paper with your writing on it. But yeah, I also took that panel piece and I cut it out of some white, just partially, and I cut out, I trimmed it to size, so this will fit inside of my box as a background, and I'm just adding some color to it with some tumbled glass. You don't have to do this, but I thought it would be nice to have a little sky scene. You can also just kind of measure how big you need this piece to be and trim it accordingly. But I just was lazy and used the die. So next I am taking these Gansai Tambi watercolors, as I always do, and I'm just adding some of the white gold shade to the background, just for some, dimension and sparkle. Next, I'm adding these boughs. I have two cut out. One is a lighter green, one is a darker, and I think the dye was from the Fireplace add-on, and I'm just gluing one on top of the other. I believe it was the darkest onto the lightest, and I do offset them just a little when I glue them on top of each other, because it just adds like a little bit of dimension and interest to them so they don't look so flat. And I feel like that's what really made this card, because these images are so simple. They look quite flat, in my opinion, when you just glue them on. So I feel like kind of doubling these up really just added some extra interest. Next I have this banner from the Shadow Box die set, and I'm just adding a sentiment. I believe this is from like a wavy Christmas sentiment stamp set. I'll have it linked down below in the description where I have all my products listed. And this one was Season's Greetings, I believe, because it is a seasonal card, so it felt fitting. And I'm stamping my sentiment with, I believe, pine needles distress oxide ink. It's just like a darker turquoise that I felt like complemented my color palette. Alright, next I am taking that bough after it has dried, and I'm using that Lawn Fawn liquid glue yet again, and I'm gluing it down to the bottom of my frame, just to add some interest and, quite literally frame my shadow box here. So I am just adding that on and letting that dry. So here I start to decorate just a little bit on the outside. It is easiest to decorate your frame while it's still flat and it's not like folded into a box just yet. So I am adding these bows here, and like the bow, I am kind of layering one on top of the other, just to add some contrast and some more interest, I guess. And when I'm gluing them, they're being offset just a little. So I don't know, I felt like it was interesting. And here I am applying my Be Creative tape to the top. It's just, I think it's an 1/8 inch thickness, and I'm using that to glue down my banner just so it's nice and stuck on there. And I will go ahead and just add more of these images I have cut out around my frame. Just like the front of my frame box here, I am also taking some of these embellishments I have and just gluing them to the back. I just ended up trying to use like everything I had cut out. I didn't end up using everything, but I ended up using a good portion of everything I had cut, so I was really happy with it. and I really thought that just adding these details to the back really makes the card, and it just makes it really special. So with my hills finally dry, I am adding some Be Creative tape to the tabs, and I'll be gluing them onto my box. But if I was you, I would stop here and decorate these hills before you put them into your box, because it makes decorating them a little bit harder when your box is 3D rather than 2D. So just a tip, if you're doing this, decorate your hills before you start putting them into your box card, like me. Anyways, I am adding this background I had, inked up and stuff, and I'm just gluing that to the back of my shadow box here using some ATG gun adhesive, and I'm making sure that's nice and flat, and I kind of used the creases to line this up when I was gluing it down. Next, I'm gluing these hills, so I am removing the adhesive tape from one side of these hills and lining it up on this side here, trying to make sure it's as straight as possible. And I'm making sure that where I'm gluing it, it is not super close to the crease at the back. I mean, you can have it closer, but I like having them, spaced out evenly along this panel. They're not too close to either the front or the back crease. It just adds more of a 3D look. And then I'm laying these tabs flat, taking off the tape, and folding this piece onto them. I hope I'm explaining this good enough for you to understand what's going on, but yes. And then I'm putting more tape on this tab and folding the other side. I hope the visuals make more sense than my explanation. But that's how you assemble it. It folds nice and flat one way, so I mean, that's a bonus for mailing. So here I have these trees from the mountain add-on, and I'm just gluing these little bows on top. And then on all of my trees here, I have 5 in total. I am adding some 1/8 inch Be Creative tape to the bottom of them to glue them onto my hills / I guess inside of my shadow box. So here I am adding some decorative elements to my little images here for the inside of my shadow box. I'm gluing this little wand onto my fairy and some hats onto my frogs. I didn't end up using all 3 of these frogs, it's fine. And I also colored these in a previous video, so go check that one out if you haven't already and you want to know how I colored these. But I would also recommend adding any gel pen details and stuff to these images now before you glue them into the box, because it becomes a little bit harder when they're inside the shadow box, as I later learned. So definitely do that before you glue them. Just a little tip. I took a strip of acetate I had cut. You could use any kind of waste acetate you have too. And I added some Be Creative tape to the top here, attached my little fairy, and I'm adding some more tape to the bottom to glue her onto the backs of one of my hills on this card. And to finish off this card, I am just gluing down my frogs wherever I see fit. You can really do whatever you want with this. Just when I was gluing down my frogs and other elements, I am using the Be Creative tape and only attaching it to the bottoms of the frogs where they will be glued to the hills, so that when I fold this card flat, everything doesn't stick to each other. And then I proceeded to finish off this card with, some glitter glue and gel pens and stuff. I would recommend doing that before assembling this card in the way that I did, as I said before. And that's about it for this video. So feel free to comment if you have any questions or stuff like that. Share this video with others. Subscribe if you're new, if you want to see new videos. And just thank you so much for watching. I have an Instagram down below. And have a good day.